I am super excited to be moderating a conversation with two pretty amazing human beings that exist in the world and exist within the video games. And this is a conversation. The chat is open for questions, and I will do my best to go over there and moderate and make sure that the questions get to be asked. But what we're going to do is go through some questions in a conversation, take a little break, and answer some questions and finish up that conversation. And so I am going to actually have our panelists introduce themselves. But the first question I have, share your name, share your pronouns, what you do in the world, and the moment that you knew you were a gamer. So we're going to start with you, Freya.
Hi, my name is Freya Marquardt. My pronouns are she, her, and what I do in the world right now is I'm currently working as the Vice President of Marketing for Vite Ramen, and I also work alongside Raidiant, helping out as a match admin, community manager, and a just general consultant for a lot of their esports events for marginalized genders, primarily over in the Overwatch 2 and Rocket League scenes. And the moment I knew I was a gamer had to be when I was very young. I think I was like 3 years old. My dad ended up buying a Super Nintendo for the family as a Christmas present one year, and it was always just a fun time playing alongside my siblings and always competing with each other, seeing who could get the furthest and things and be the best there. So that would probably be the moment.
Love it, love it, love it. Thank you. Brittany Johnson.
Hi, everyone. I'm Brittany Johnson. I am the Director of Influencer Relations for Dexerto, but you might know me from many different things. For the last 4 years, I was at G2 Esports, and I do a lot of hosting and voiceover work. I hear my dog barking, but
We love dogs. We love dogs.
yeah, so I've been in this space for probably over, gosh, at this point, like closing in on probably around 15 years. Yeah, 12 to 15 years. And yeah, the first time I knew I was a gamer was also when I was really young, and I would sit on my grandfather's lap while he played games on his PC. Like I remember back to the floppy disk days. But even more so, I would watch him play some games like The Hunt for Red October and like Duke Nukem and Doom and stuff like that, like very old school games. And I was always like so into it. And then he taught me how to play and like would give me mods where, as a kid, like I felt like I could understand it. And ever since then, I've always been super competitive, really into the story of games. And, for every year after that, my parents would always get me like new games or new consoles or whatever. So that was something that they instilled in me from a really young age.
I love this. I feel like it's a really important question because there's so much around this label of gamer in the space. And I kind of just want everyone that loves games to claim it and kind of think of it like riding a bicycle, right? So like you always, once you learn to ride a bicycle, you get to ride it. And there might be times where you don't ride for a little while and then you go and you ride your bicycle again, or you go hiking, or you do different things like that. And so I just want everyone to be encouraged that being a gamer doesn't mean that it has to be something you do 100% all the time. There might be ebbs and flows to it, but also when it happens for each of us is so unique and different. So you all do some pretty cool work right now. I'd love for you to share with people what you adore about the work that you do right now. What is it that like you just love about what you get to do and bring into the world? I'm going to start with you on that one, Brittany.
One of the things I think gets me the most excited right now is whenever I felt that way, growing up, I was like, I did not feel like your traditional gamer, but I gamed a lot. And I wanted it to be more of a mainstream thing. I really did. I wanted to see more brands get involved. I wanted to see it become cool. And we're in that. We're living that now. And so, being able to work with brands that I've always been excited about and helping them navigate the space, or bringing opportunities to people to be able to further their career. That's been one of the things that has been really fulfilling for me.
I love that. And you're right. It's definitely we're having a moment where it's kind of cool. Freya, do you want to add anything to that? What do you adore?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things that I adore about what I'm doing now is, I've had the opportunity to work with just so many amazing people across the entire world, and I don't feel like that's an opportunity that you really often get in other careers out there. It's not often that you can find a job where you're going to go, oh yeah, now I have people who I work with in France, in Germany, in Japan, and literally just everywhere across the world, and you just get to learn so much about people that you may not otherwise have the opportunity to.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm like in the moment living my adoration for what I get to do, which is like fangirl over
Yeah.
people that I just adore and love in this space and be like, hey, you want to be on a panel? You want to talk to some cool people, or just like share your passion with the world. And that's something that I've like so loved. So I really, I just respect both of you so much and really appreciate you being here with us. And the title of this was How to Turn Your Passion for Gaming into a Career, which is super broad, but I would love to hear, started out with like when you were a gamer, or the things that you adore. I'm really curious if you would share a little bit about how you took this passion of yours or a passion of yours and turned it into something that was what you get to do for a living. What were the steps, or what was involved in that? Maybe you're still figuring it out, whatever it is that you share.
Who goes first?
Uh,
Um,
sure, I'll
and
go first on that one.
no? Okay, great.
Uh, it's kind of funny because one of the things that I think we've all heard a million times is the phrase that, careers in gaming are not linear. And sure, that's true. Like I don't think that there's really anybody out there who's followed exactly the same path as anybody else. But I know, like for me, when I was starting out and I heard that, I thought that was one of the least helpful things anyone could have ever told me, because I know I was just looking for somewhere to start. And so where I did end up starting um, was just literally, I had just done a couple of events as a competitor, and I started to notice a lot of the places where I thought that those events needed some help. Like maybe they didn't really have much for graphics, or they had like two volunteers who are running this entire event on their own. And so I would just go to those people and say, hey, here's some of my work. Here's what I can do. Here's some things where I can see you guys are having a little bit of a hard time. Would you like me to help out with that? And more often than not, the answer was yes, because they did need the help. And so you get into those positions. Um, and I know I've also been a person in the past who has said, you shouldn't work anything for free. But I think that that's a kind of a phrase that I need to amend to just being, you shouldn't do any work that doesn't uh, repay you in some way. Like if you don't have a lot of experience, sometimes those free jobs, those volunteer jobs, are one of the best ways for you to grow and learn and start to be able to show the world what you can do, and can lead to a lot more commissioned work or contract work or just long-term positions in the end.
Yeah, that's such a great point. I like your amendment there around maybe not for free, but we have to kind of think about different ways that we can compensate people for what they do, or the ways that we can kind of work together. So I really
Yeah.
appreciate that. Brittany, what would you like to say about this topic of how you took what you were passionate about and are making a living doing?
Oh my goodness, I have such a unique story. And it's one
Hey.
that it's like not it's almost difficult to talk about it in a setting like this because you can't replicate it. However, I do think there's something to say about consistency and being diligent and reaching out to people and talking to people and networking. But my first job ever in video games was Borderlands, and that really helped. I've always been a gamer, but I never knew the paths that were in gaming. I never knew the careers that were available to me. I went to school for something totally different. I was going to go work in oil and gas law. Like I was just on a totally different path.
Wow.
Yeah, and I was like, Borderlands 1 just blew up, and we were like, what do I do with this? And then Borderlands 2 happened, and they were like, why aren't you taking advantage of this? Go to California and pursue this career in gaming. And I was like, yeah, you know what? You're right. But I had no plan. But I just knew I wanted to try to pursue a career in gaming. And not just voiceover, not just on camera talent. I wanted to be behind the scenes. I liked and really admired the business side of it. And so, as I was meeting people, I would offer my help. I'd say like, hey, do you need help at this event? Do you need help? And I had a really good eye, and I think that experience as being a gamer too, I was able to really talk to brands and help people understand the space in a very digestible way, which very much helped when I was in those positions be successful at those. And then that just helped me build up, my career ladder. I started out consulting, started working with a company that really needed help expanding their footprint in the US. And that's something that I like really focused on for a while, was helping connect dots and connect people and connect businesses that would help them grow. And then I, was very interested in different sides of the industry. So I've worked in esports, I've worked with brands, I've worked with, on the influencer marketing side, I worked in production. So having that experience and having that outlook, you can kind of mold it and build whatever you want out of it. And one of the things I tell people the most is, you don't have to stick to one thing. You don't.
Yeah.
And the more that you know,
Yeah.
and the more that you understand this business, the more valuable you are, and so you have that experience, and you can pretty much just take whatever path that makes the most sense for you.
Yeah. Two things. One, I definitely want to shout out in the chat. Like, I agree with not everybody can work for free. While I appreciate the amendment, I have to say from my own journey, I was not able to. As a first generation American in the US, and my family was immigrants, like I had to always be working. I think that the ways that I kind of bartered with people was there were things I wasn't very good at, so I was like, can you help me with this thing that's going to help my business grow, right? So can you help me with my website? Can you help me with like these different things? So I want to just respect that we get that. I think everyone has to find their space and things that they can do. So I wanted to name that, and I really, really appreciate what you said about consistency, right? Like just consistently going for the things that you're passionate about, and that everyone's journey is going to be your journey specifically, right? Like it's not going to be we can't replicate mine, we can't replicate Freya's, we can't replicate Brittany's, right? Like we have to forge our path. But I'm so interested in some of the common threads. And so what I'd love to hear, you talked about your first jobs in gaming. I would love to know two things. What you learned, like what was a skill that you took from that first experience that you think everyone would be beneficial? Like what did it teach you? Oh no, this is the question. What was the worst job you ever had? Or you can talk about your first job and what did you learn from that? I think it's really important. I'll start with that. I worked in a mailroom. I have a very big age, and so I worked in a mailroom that was literally back in the day where you would just like wheel the carts, and then we had like a secret room where we would go if the mail looked suspicious. Like we didn't even send it to a place, like we were actually opening it. It was the worst job that I ever had. I won't go into all the details. But one of the things that it taught me was it taught me how to, and I was the only, at that time, I was the only woman that worked in the mailroom. And it taught me a lot about how to stay true to myself. And I ended up leaving that job, but there was these lessons about like things that I just didn't think were right, and how to stay true to myself at a really, really young age. So I just wanted to name that and join the conversation. But what about you all?
Okay, I'll go. My worst job, but I would say the job that I learned the most in terms of understanding people and communicating and selflessness is being a server. Was not, the best server, and I was very opinionated and had a very short fuse, but I definitely think it does teach you how to communicate with people and understand and be forgiving. And I would say, even though I hated it, and even though it was my worst job, I still would never take it back, and I would still think everyone at some point should work in hospitality just so that they have that sense of selflessness.
Freya, do you want to?
Definitely agree there. My first job was also food service. I worked as a cashier at a Burger King. That was my first like official job. I did some like lawn care and stuff as a kid before then, but I think the biggest thing that I learned on that was we had this phrase we always use where we say just kill them with kindness, where when people are being their worst to you, which I get it. You're hungry, you're coming in, something's not going your way, you're going to be a bit irritable, it's going to happen, but keep in mind you're probably yelling at some 14-year-old who's just trying their best. So what we would do is just do our best to just always respond to any of that irritability with kind, any of that irrational anger with kind, and just even if you want to be upset, yell back or whatever, you just got to do your best to have a lot of patience, and that was a big thing there. And I did also just want to like backtrack slightly to also touch on the person in chat who had mentioned not everybody can afford to work for free. Absolutely, 100%. I'm also a person who can't always afford to do free work. I worked as a volunteer with the Women's Carball Championships, getting that started up. Now just known as Women's Carball. It's Women's League and Rocket League. I helped them out from 2019 to 2022, and then when they were going between seasons 4 and season 5, I had to step away because as much as I loved everyone there, I loved that whole community, I loved everything that we were building up, and I wanted to continue to be a part of it, I could not afford myself to spend any more time in that role as a volunteer. And so I had to make the tough decision to walk away from it and just go back to doing specifically paid gigs until I had gotten through kind of a rough patch in my life. So, definitely not everyone should work for free. That is not at all what I'm saying. But you should just be mindful of where that balance is for you. And if there is an opportunity, that is a good opportunity for you to learn something that you haven't learned before, and you can spare the time to put that volunteer hour into it, then definitely go for it. A lot of those things will help us grow, but if you can't afford to do that, totally understandable, and just take some of your time in whatever free time you have and just keep working at those skills to the best of your ability on your own. Whether if you're like a graphic designer like myself, maybe you like a particular esports brand, maybe you just want to take and do a little practice for yourself and just like redo their entire branding image, or whatever the case may be. Just finding those ways to create opportunities for yourself is always a plus.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because there's a big conversation about internships and like whether those things should be free within the space. Actually, who gets access to those and what does it even mean? And so I'm really curious to hear a little bit about any advice or tips or important things that anyone listening should know or do in order to get the job that they want and deserve, right? So like, what should they do? Because I do think that sometimes it feels like it's this elusive thing to get a job in the video game industry, right? So you had two important things that anyone that's listening to this would be able to, that you want to impart on them. What would you say? And my dog might join the conversation at some point too, so just so we're all clear.
Mine's already joining. I guess, you know, my thing is the only internships I ever took were ones where, yes, you're right. If I did work for free, I did get something in return. So like school credit, anything like that. Don't put yourself out for a job just because you hope it turns into an opportunity. And never, everyone wants the rags to riches story, but but also like you need to be able to feed yourself and pay your bills, and there's opportunities out there
Yeah.
that are gonna help you with that. And don't ever think of it like this is my only chance. If you have the opportunity to volunteer or anything like that, like of course, like get in the room and meet the people. I saw something in the comments of like, where did you find the people that helped you the next step? Um, Honestly, it was me going to events. I would go to QuakeCon. I would go to any like local lands or events or tournaments that were happening, and or E3. I would plant myself at the bar at E3 and just talk to literally anyone who would walk around me. And that just being kind and open and personable, people want to be around you. People want to work with you. People want to help find opportunities and put you, in those places. And I can't say like E3, I don't know if I'd be where I'm at today if it wasn't for E3 in my career specifically. But I am someone that like if I'm at an event, I'm not going to go and check into my hotel and sit in my hotel room until I have to be at somewhere at X time. I'm out, I'm mingling, I'm meeting people, I'm expanding my network. You never know when you're going to run into these people again. You never know when you're going to apply for a job and they're the ones you're interviewing with. Make yourself open and available. Go to the events, go to the networking events, go to the happy hours. Just be around people and be positive. Like don't, like you are trying to get into this world. You're trying to build up that relationship. And so I wouldn't, you just have to like be in it and be grateful for it and put a smile on your face and just say hello to anyone.
You. Freya, do you have any tips or suggestions or something from your own lived experience that you would offer to people if they want to get the job that they want and deserve?
Yeah, definitely. 100% agree with everything that Brittany was just saying. I'm someone who honestly didn't have a lot of opportunity to um, go to any events when I was starting out in person. I was not in a place financially where I could have afforded to like make a trip across the country to DreamHack or PAX or E3 or anything like that. But what I did have that I think is a great opportunity for everyone is just networking through things like Discord, finding those different gaming communities that you really click with and that you can start to get to know a lot of people through. You know, esports was obviously where I started out, but like it could be anything from like a Minecraft server building thing to just like Dungeons and Dragons to anything like whatever it is that you're passionate about. There's a community out there that you can network with and who you can start to be discovered alongside with. Just really do your best to get out there and network with other people and find those places where you start to feel like you fit in. And kind of going along with what Brittany was saying about just generally being positive, being grateful for the things that you get. Obviously, I'm sure that everyone here can think of someone off the top of their head where you're like, oh, this person does some sneaky things and kind of cuts people out of whatever. And like, sure, there are some people who are going to get to the places that they are by doing some underhanded things, but your reputation is all that you have in this industry. And so just try to keep in mind that everything that you do, someone sees. You are in a fishbowl at all times. And even when you think no one's looking, someone is taking screenshots. Someone is out there, just jotting these things down. And if you are someone who's being underhanded like that, it's going to come back and bite you later. So just be a good, kind, honest person. Be yourself, because there's only one of you out there. Like it doesn't need to be some big ridiculous character who sticks out from the crowd. Just be yourself, and you'll stand out all on your own.
Yeah, I love that. And just that, you're the only you out there, right? For each of us and each of the paths that we're going to choose to take. I just appreciate what both of you had to say there. Yeah, I'm sorry. Let me go back. I've like gone off into my own little world thinking about all the things and all of my connection to it. I'm really curious about the most impactful feedback that you've ever received that really helped you to move forward in your career. The most impactful piece of feedback that you've ever received. Oh, Brittany, do you want to start? I see something there.
No, I'm trying to think.
Yeah, I can start if it's helpful. If you want
It
a
is a
minute.
tough one.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a big one. I mean,
Yeah, go ahead.
I have been told that there's times where I'm just like I'm like I call myself a cliffer. Like I can see when something's going to go off of a cliff. Like this is not the move. Like we should not do this. And sometimes people aren't ready to hear that, so I have to kind of like know that. But I was in a professional setting, and someone told me that I needed to learn the balance between holding back and holding steady. And I was really intrigued by this because it was really hard for me to sit sometimes and not say something if I saw something happening. But what this person said to me was that the difference is holding steady means that you trust the space and the people that you're with, that someone is going to bring this to the room. Like just hold steady for a minute, Verta. Just wait. Like you have the right, if you're in the right place at the right time, like this is going to come out. Holding back means that I'm not being myself. And that I would regret, like once I leave that room, I will regret not having said something. And this has stayed with me. This is probably at least 15 years now. And that has just stayed with me forever because anytime I move in a space now, I think about that. Am I holding back or am I holding steady in this moment? Because sometimes holding steady is important. And it was just really impactful for me. And I think that anyone thinking about either changing a career or you're like just recently graduating and deciding what you want to do, sometimes you just need to hold steady for a minute. You don't have to jump at the thing right away, but never hold back. So that's mine.
I actually have never heard that, holding steady or holding back. Like that's something I want to kind of keep in my pocket.
It was so huge. I was like, what? It just like rocked my world.
Yeah.
So
I'm like racking my brain. You know, I'm so grateful for feedback, and
it could even be something that was negative that you were just like, whoa, and it may be like you agreed with it, you didn't agree with it. Like it could be it's just impactful. So it doesn't have to be judged as like good or bad feedback. Just something that was really impactful. We can come back to it once in time.
Yeah, like I've been.
We'll come back.
I've got something.
Yeah, go ahead. Go.
You're like, oh, I got something.
I do because actually this was something that you had said to me, Verta, at one point in time. There was one point in time when Verta and I were just having some conversations about all the things that were going on in her life, and she had asked me, "What are you doing for you in all that, with all that stuff you've got going on? Like, how are you taking some time for yourself right now?" And it was really something that I just had kind of had my blinders on, was just totally tunnel visioned on all the things that I was doing for my goals, and hadn't realized that I was really burning myself out a lot because I wasn't even spending an hour in my day just trying to focus on resting, recharging, doing something for myself to be able to keep myself in good enough physical and mental shape to be able to keep doing all this stuff long term. So just remembering to take some time for ourselves and to take that time to rest and recharge is definitely one of the biggest pieces of feedback I've had.
Oh, I wasn't even expecting that. What are y'all doing to me right now? Okay, but I think it's true, and I will like say it over and over, and I'm so glad that that hit you in a way that you are thinking about taking, because we need you in this. Got anything for us, Brittany? And it's okay if not. I got a whole bunch more questions.
I mean, it's not going to be as like crazy impactful, but something that really did make me kind of step back and focus more was, in the beginning, not even in the beginning, for the longest time, if anyone came to me asking for help with anything, I would say yes. To the point where I'm like, my eyes are glazed over, my hair is in all different directions, I look like a mad scientist. And, so I just remember someone sat down and they were like, Brittany, yes, like, you're doing an amazing job, and you're not lacking in anything that you're giving to any one of these projects, but like clearly, visibly, you are a mess. It's okay to say no. and it really took me just being like, oh my God, for my own mental health, I have to be able to say, like, I can't handle that, but I will find you someone who is more than capable to help, and not try to take everything on myself. And that's something that really I needed to learn, and it hit me like a brick wall, at some point. And I'm really just like focus on, I had to pivot and be like, Brittany, you need to balance and focus on yourself a little bit, or else I was just gonna go crazy. But yeah, I mean, that was a huge thing for me, because I felt the need. I was like, I'm building this career. I need to help anyone and everyone, and if I pass on something, then that's an opportunity that I missed. And it's not that. You have to do what's good for you.
Yeah.
At the end
I
of the
think
day.
that's hella impactful. What are you talking about? That's a huge one. And I think especially when you are taking something that you love and making a career out of it, you have to actually have some boundaries, right? Because it can be really, it can be like everything's intertwined, right? So, I love gaming, I'll game, I'll do this, I'll say yes to all these things, but you have boundaries. I think that's really, really important one. And I think that I'll speak for myself as a Black woman. I feel that like there's this stereotypical, you can handle it all, we're strong, we can do that, but I don't want to always be that, right? I want someone to come in and like, you can take the lead on this project, or I don't have to do that thing all the time. And that as women, we shouldn't be sold that bill, that we don't have to have balance, I say. We have to have fulfillment. That, there's times where I'm going to be fulfilled by doing this thing, which I have to say no to that. Sometimes I'm going to be saying yes to that, but thing, but I think it's really I want to say we're going to open up for questions, and if you just go over, if you move yourself over here, we'll put you in speaker mode and you can come up and ask any. Oh, we're not going to go over there. No, not us. Those were the
we're
questions.
not. Okay.
Oh, you mean me. Got it.
Anyone that has a question. I love it. Anyone that has a question can go there, and you can actually just ask your question instead of putting that. So you can go over there and we'll come over there, and I'll put you on speaker so you can that. I would love to know about anything that you're super passionate about right now, something that has you super excited. I want to do two parts to this. Something in the space that has you super excited. So like within the industry, you're like, I'm so excited about this thing. And also just something in your own life. And it could be gaming related, but it could be non-gaming. So share with us something that you're just super passioned about right now. Two things, one in the industry and one outside.
I'll start because I'm excited. Yes, I've been working on something like a little passion project for the past year, and it is something that brings me so much excitement because, as I said with the first question, one of the things I really love is bringing opportunity to people. And I realized for broadcast talent, and it's going to expand beyond just broadcast talent, but there was not a place for people to go and find work. It was more of a who you know type situation, or you had to have an agent, but you didn't know where to go to get the work to get the agent. And that really was a huge huge struggle, and it is continues to be a huge struggle for talent or aspiring talent in the space. And on the other hand, too, production, you know, diversity, inclusion, trying to find developmental talent. Where do you go to find those people? Beyond what, hey, does anyone know anyone who can do this? So I'm building a platform for that will be launching very soon, actually. And
Nice.
and I just hope that a lot of people, productions, be able to use it. I hope people are able to find a lot of work and further their careers with it. And so I think that it exists in traditional entertainment. I have no idea why it doesn't exist in gaming and esports, but I said, I'll do it. Fine. No one else is going to.
Awesome. We are looking forward
That's
to that.
incredible. Like I think a lot of us always thought that like Hitmarker and things like that would develop into something like that, but it's been more of the managerial side of things and the admin side of things. So that's really cool to hear that you have that going.
Yeah, it'll be, I'm at first it's definitely going to be heavily marketed for on-camera talent. However, I want to build it into where it's anything production, anything like contract gigs, like admins, observers, production assistants, script writing, stream techs, makeup artists, photographers, videographers, like whatever you need for like a gig type work, this will be the place to go to find those people.
I love it. I'm passionate about that now too. Now that you've put it out there, I'm passionate about your passion right now. Freya? Oh, that's
As far as like in gaming industry things that I'm passionate about right now, I would have to say all the work that I'm doing alongside Raidiant with Calling All Heroes and Overwatch 2. Massively passionate about that, and it's crazy to me that this whole series of events is even happening because before Calling All Heroes, the only event that I knew of that had been similar to it was one that I helped run called the Overwatch Empowerment Cup, which was, as far as I'm aware, the first marginalized gender event for Overwatch. And then from there, one of the people that had worked alongside me on that event was Bailey McCann, who, like 2 weeks after we closed out that tournament, she ended up getting brought in as the new project manager for Play Overwatch. So that was absolutely massive for her. And then she had continuously worked to pitch bringing on Calling All Heroes as something that Overwatch would do permanently, or at least trial it. And so I was really happy to get to work with her and consult with her on that and get it turned into where it's at now and where it's going. And I'm just honestly so happy that I get to continue to be a part of that journey, working alongside Radiant on the production end of it and seeing that it continues to be a success. But then as far as like outside of gaming industry stuff, I'm super passionate about just art in general, and I'm really happy that I'm finally getting to a point where I can actually have some time in my day where I can just make things that I want to make for myself, just be able to start painting again or doing some digital illustrations. I started doing a lot of album covers for musicians who I know, and I still have a few of those to go yet, but I've been posting those out on my socials too as they get done, and it's just something that's bringing so much joy into my life at this point, and just I absolutely love it.
I love that. Someone put in the chat, what are some everyday things you can do to feed your passion? Yali put that in there. Hey, Yali. And I feel like even you just talking about your love of art, right? That we are, we're complex beings. Just because we happen to love video games doesn't mean it's the only thing that we love. So I love that you're talking about these other passions. Yes, it can connect, but it's part of the reason for the question is just like, what are the things that keep you going, right? So do you all have any other everyday things that you can do to feed your passion, or that you do, or that you suggest?
I mean, I'll tie that back to, being able to still have balance in your life. Give yourself the things that made you fall in love with it in the first place, and also give you time for yourself, step away from it so that you continue to have that passion and not necessarily get burnt out with it. I still I still find time to play games every day outside of, and sometimes when you work in the space, your passion becomes work. Obviously, like you're not playing as many games as you used to. You're not able to sit down for 36 hours and finish a game anymore. And so trying to find that time, trying to remind yourself what made you fall in love with it in the first place, but then also giving yourself time to yourself, doing other things so that when you come back to it, you really remember what makes you love that thing. I still like I can step away, go give myself, go touch grass, do that stuff, go travel, and then I come back and I'm like, you know what? It's gonna be really nice to sit down and actually play this new game that I'm excited about that's coming out and not feel burnt out and that I have to do it.
Yeah. I think for me, um, it changes over time, but I do think like the arts are very important to me as well. And so it's just like really finding that opportunity to stay engaged with it, whether it's like being a viewer of it. I live in New York City, and so I try to take as much advantage of that reality as possible, going to museums, literally just following beautiful things on my social media because we can train our algorithm. And so I really like tried to train my algorithm in all of my social spaces so that the things that I'm consuming are like feeding me. It's one of the ways that I do that as well. A question that we have in the chat, couple. So I'm gonna go to a few questions. If anyone wants to say theirs out loud, go over to that second. But best organizational, oh, it's going so fast. Best organizational tools that you use to keep track of projects. Do you have any tools that you all use?
Oh, yes, absolutely. So for when I'm doing a lot of my own personal like side gigs, side commissions, all of that, I use Trello boards a lot to keep all of those things organized, see, what my priority is going to be on those. I also use Monday.com, which is just a big, big way of keeping track of everything because you can organize all of your different tasks into different groups. You can set your deadlines on there. You can take a look at all of these projects that you have upcoming in like a calendar format. See, you can set different statuses to everything, different categories for everything. So you can say, okay, where am I spending the majority of my time right now? Am I doing like 99% of one thing and only 1% of everything else? Okay, maybe I should realign this and figure out where I should be spending more time and less time. So that's been like a very, very good tool for me to actually keep track of all of my things, especially because like I personally have ADHD. So keeping focus on things is not always easy, and having a list that I can always just go back to like that and say, okay, where am I at? What am I supposed to be doing today? What deadlines are coming up is massive.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Brittany, tools, organization.
Yeah, I was gonna say Monday's been super helpful. I do use Monday a lot. I'm also very old school in this that I write things down. So I have a calendar on my desk that I literally write down every day things that I need to do or block out to do or when things are due. And just actually physically writing it out and not just having it written in my phone keeps me more accountable. And I don't know, it's just a personal thing for me. I was always someone who I always like to write out my notes before I would type them up. But for some reason, writing it out definitely helps organize and on top of those deadlines and the needs to have, the nice to have, all that. And so
Sticky notes are great.
Yeah, and really just when you're working on team projects, like I haven't really found anything better than Monday that I like to use.
A question: did either of you need a graduate degree to? Gosh, they keep popping up, and every time I scroll, it goes away. Did either of you need a graduate degree to do what you do? Do you think that it is? Do you think it's important or even necessary to pursue grad school for esports or gaming careers?
The only thing I would at this point say that would be beneficial, I mean, it really depends on the track that you want. my degree's in, like I said earlier, my degree's in something totally different, but because I have that like law background, it's really helped me with contracts and contract negotiating, which that's very valuable to me. And if I would have gone back in time and or not even gone back in time, like even during the pandemic, part of me is like, oh, I wish I actually finished law school, just to have that. But I'm never going to discredit in getting an MBA. Working for any of the big publishers, that's something that still they see and they like, and even encourage. So if you have the opportunity to do it and the time and are capable of doing it, I'm not going to sit here and say that's a bad idea. But you are capable of having a career in gaming without it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely do not have a graduate degree myself. I actually just have an associate's degree, and I am like 99.9% of the way towards my bachelor's degree, and just need to go back and finish out a couple classes. So, the one thing I will say about that is there definitely are certain positions where having that degree is going to be a necessary thing to get hired in. But overall, it's not like an absolute necessity for most roles, I would think.
Yeah, I think it's a tricky question. We're in this very interesting moment, I think, with higher education. I think that sadly we live, if you are in the United States, and I can't speak to this globally, but having a degree matters, and that's bachelor's degree. So I don't know if it has to be a master's degree per se, as your question said, but having a bachelor's degree offers opportunities for people that might not get those opportunities otherwise. And in this case, I'm talking about there's a lot of racial disparity, there's a lot of gender disparity around who gets jobs without the degree versus who will get them with a degree. And that's just bachelor's. I agree with so much of what our panelists have said today about experience networking and like who you know. It's like getting in those rooms. Those things will also get you into jobs that you want as well. I think we could have like a whole other panel about this very question. And maybe that's something that we'll
easily
have to add. Because, you know what I mean? Like, because there's so many important things that we're not able to say about it. I have a question here. I'm about to make a big change. Last day of full-time job in 4 weeks, and I find myself facing unemployment for the first time in 10 years. What would you say would be the best uses of my newfound free time in order to launch a career in gaming or community management? And anyone that has questions, because it's like so many coming in, honestly, if you just like pop up, you just like come near me or come near the stage, we can have you ask it yourself because we really want to get to all.
Can I actually go back to the last question just for a second?
Yes.
Because I saw someone actually post about this. Someone said it's way easier to get a job with a degree in our industry. Yeah, there are certain parts of the industry. We're still flying the plane and building it as we're flying it. It depends on the company. It depends on the side of the industry you're talking about. Really, the only, the companies that are that way are the ones that have been around for a while that have a little bit more of a corporate structure. I'm talking about mainly the publishers. You can go and work for besides it being technical, you can technically go work for a developer on the business side, on the project management side, without having a project management degree, like that type of stuff. You can go work on the marketing side without that. But if you are looking at getting degrees, I almost don't even recommend when people are like, oh, I'm getting my master's in gaming esports. I'm like, as an executive, if I'm looking at two resumes and one person has a business degree and one person has an esports degree and they're the exact same person, I know by them going and getting a business degree, they're versed in other areas as well. And I love that these universities are investing in gaming and esports and whatever. But I'd still recommend something a little bit more broad, like a business. And it scares me when people get hyper focused on like one thing, and I'm like, oh my gosh. But there are a lot of us who still work in this industry who, like me, have a degree in political science, so it really doesn't matter. And then what to do? What was the question about?
I think I'm going to summarize it, but it was really like, what would be some things to do with time? What would say say would be the best use of my newfound free time in order to launch a career in gaming or community management?
Free time.
Yeah, I will say that's a tough one, but
Yeah, it is.
I can say from my. Oh, go ahead.
No, I meant to point to you, but it went the wrong way. So I was gonna say
Okay,
you go
so
first.
yeah, so for me personally, when the whole pandemic got started, I ended up actually losing my full-time job in November of 2020. So can kind of relate there. That was actually the main time that I started really getting into gear on trying to get into things in the gaming industry more. And so I started treating what I wanted to do as my new full-time job while I was unemployed and while I had a little bit of time with the unemployment checks coming in and everything. Obviously I was also still applying for other work elsewhere because I didn't know how long I was going to be able to make things work on just unemployment checks. But uh, I was basically spending a couple of hours a day on making resumes, cover letters, filling out job applications, and then I would spend like the next 6 to 8 hours doing everything I could to learn more about graphic design, doing everything I could to learn more about marketing, um, doing my best to create a few different grassroots communities in gaming. Um, I ended up creating my own esports team, which was called Venus Vixens, which was just a gaming community meant to help women learn what it was like to be a part of a large esports org and teach them a lot of things that they would need to know in terms of like how contract negotiations and everything like that worked, because I did also work with a couple of orgs who I was able to get some of that experience with, and I wanted to share it with others. And just generally, I was doing everything I could to help other people who were in the industry who I could see had a lot of potential get into the positions that would help them. And during that time, just spending as many hours as I could on teaching myself that stuff, doing some freelance gigs here and there, creating those grassroots communities. That was really what
Thank you
propelled me into
both.
where I'm at
I'm
today.
gonna ask one, I'm
So,
gonna put one more
if you're able
question
to
into the
do
space
some of
because
those
I
sort of
think
things
that's
on
really
your own during that
relevant
free time, highly
timely
recommend it.
with our last couple of minutes. As we see many sports organizations falling under due to financial issues, should we be worried about the esports and gaming?
Absolutely not. There was a time where there was an influx in investments. There's actually a really good article that came out recently about this. I can find it. Gosh, I'm like, where did I read it yesterday. But there was an influx of investments that came in. The franchise model that they tried putting out, say they, because we all know who, it was too expensive. And they made it really difficult for it to stay pretty endemic and for it to be genuine. And the money just wasn't spent the right way. And the promises weren't kept. So does that mean it failing means esports is at a risk? Absolutely not. Gaming and esports isn't going anywhere. People are still consuming the content. People are still watching. People are still going to the events. It's those titles. It's harder to make a title specifically with the intent of it becoming an esport, technically. But yeah, I mean, even during a recession, if we go into a recession, people still continue to game because that entertainment and that purchase goes a lot further than a lot of other purchases that were made. You're not going to go to the movies every week. You're not going to, not that many people do anyways, but like you're not going to just go spend a lot of money to go to Disneyland. But that is something that you can spend and get a good investment and return on hours from. And so there's, it might be scary. It might be scary that you see some of these teams backing out, that you see not a lot of money coming in, but that doesn't mean it's going to last that way. Every industry is feeling the repercussions of like the beginning, or like the little bit of the recession that we're getting. And investors not spending as much money right now, but we're just all sailing it together.
Yeah. Do you want to add anything, Freya? Should we be worried?
No, I think you pretty much hit it on that one.
Yeah, I think that there's a laser focus on one part of this industry. So they said esports and video game. The video game industry is huge. There are so many things for so many people to do within the space, and esports is but one part of that, right? So all of you in the room that I saw this, I see like poli-sci, I see like these other majors. You can be an art major, you can be law, you can do all of these things. There are skills that are transferable within the industry, right? So get really good at the things that you're doing. Study those things. If you have the opportunity with time, take free courses. There are so many, like Harvard University offers all of these free courses. Video game design, take some coding, take some project management. There are lots of free courses that are offered that I think people did not get to all of the see someone wants to do voiceover work, well, practice that. Start a page, start doing it yourself, like create some content, do all of the things. But I want to honor that we have another speaker coming up. So last two things for our speakers: share how people can get in touch with you. You can also go over into our lounger side question socials. But also, is there any last word that you'd like to leave with our audience?
If you ever see me at events, please just always walk up and say hi. Don't feel like you can't talk to me or reach out to me. I am on LinkedIn, and I'd say Twitter is best. But absolutely, I keep in touch, and Twitter's where I will, both Twitter and LinkedIn are where I will update everyone on any news with Tavern and anything I'm working on.
Freya?
You can find me on Twitter at Freya_Hayes. I believe I saw someone put it in the chat earlier. So that's pretty much my handle everywhere, whether that's Twitter, Instagram, whatever the case. You can also find me on LinkedIn. And I think the one thing I would leave everyone with is just don't be afraid to hear the word no. You're going to probably get more no's than yeses in anything that you do, but just keep on asking those questions, keep on putting yourself out there, and don't let someone saying no stop you from the things you want to do.
Oh my God, yes. That's probably the biggest thing that's furthered
I'm like applauding that one.
my career. Yeah, like never be afraid to ask, because the worst that can happen is no, and that doesn't affect your reputation or your relationship. Be okay with that. Move on from that and build from that. But never be afraid to ask. Never be afraid to reach out. Never be afraid to, I'm not gonna say don't take no for an answer, but like, that don't take it so personally that it affects your path in your career.
Yeah. So thank you both so much. We could do this forever, and we'll just have to invite you back for another panel. If you go into SideQuest, you'll find links to jobs. We actually have a job board link there, so anyone that's looking, their current jobs, you can go there, join us in our app, join us in our Discord, find the links to find us on LinkedIn. We are going to head on over to, where are we headed to? We're going to, I think, we're staying here. We're in the outdoor theater, so our next one is right here, so you all can mingle with each other. Go check out, but yeah, we're right here for our next panel. Brittany and Freya, thank you so much. I adore you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Glad to be here again.